Now, there's a certain type of death in which only a part of us dies, and I kind of equate that with trauma, when a part of us can die, but sometimes out of trauma a sort of somatic parthenogenesis occurs, and it can lead on to something positive. I've been writing about that recently. It's a larger work called Big Song. This is from the introduction to Big Song, and the introduction is called Echo Lolly. My mother, not my mother, begin to extend loss and grey frequency. Are you the same shadow begin to cloud? There were thousands of starlings in the sycamore this morning. Front garden. There were thousands of starlings in the sycamore this morning. Back garden. Taking turns to feed in the recently ploughed field. Begin with sawdust or knitting needles, batteries or darning thread. Fear is hypnotic. Time can be controlled by language, but it will eventually collapse in on itself. A mirror held underwater. Telephone wires, sunlight and water droplets. It is the 1980s, it is not the 1980s. This is not right. Cold tea, frost, breathe, breath, a single bar of heat. I am going to be quiet now for a very long time. Nothing has happened. It is astonishing that no one has noticed. Time is completely empty now. We take turns to drink water from an old Coke bottle, to reflect, to pity, to disgust each other, to lose one another's body. There were thousands of leaves on the sycamore this evening. They will soon fall into the recently ploughed field. Standing, water, marking, time. Every conversation is disabled by language. Belief in the plastic dark. Belief in an alternative economy. You remind me of a child. Rain fell in a very different way in the 1980s. It is still the 1980s. Telephone wires, grey sky and starlings. Let's promise to offer no more names, to name nothing. I am happy to live in the dark. The tides are governed by the moon. We take turns drinking water from a river, from a mirror. It is snowing on the recently ploughed field. I write to leave some black on white. The white glints through the words like waves, one pushing against the other. Snow fell in a different way in the 1980s. It fell in exactly the same way. I only like the beginnings of things. My shelves are full of unfinished books. Cold tea, frost. Time can be controlled by language, but you will pay for it in non-verbal cues. A line forming, a line buried within. Nothing has happened for a very long time. My dad used to say, if you can't find anything important to do, find something to do and make it important. The 1980s were so important. They were no more important than the present moment. The rain is falling on one side of the street and not the other. A puddle forms in the same pothole every time it rains sufficiently to do so. I can remember the feel of the touch of her hand. It was cold, even when the sun was blinding. The feel of the touch of his hand was like a dog's paw, the pads, or imagine the hand of a primate. Emotions are transmitted through touch, even in the rain. Even if you are standing in the puddle that forms in the same pothole every time it rains sufficiently to do so, time can be controlled by language, non-verbal cues. Time can be controlled by non-verbal cues, but you will pay for it in language. I breathe in starlings, all of the starlings flying over the recently ploughed field. Cherry blossom has covered the car. I cannot see through the windscreen. We never go anywhere anymore. Shafts of light, an oncoming storm. A line of pylons in the distance reflect a low winter sun. Thousands of sycamore seeds have germinated everywhere I go. I see them grow. Green leaves, a red car, the stars in the sky, the grooves in denim, the arm of a chair, my forehead. I am in this moment counting the things I can see, touch and smell. Breathing was very different in the 1980s. It was almost exactly the same, but it was different. Do you want food, drink? Teller, you must want something. It's the same room. It is a totally different room, but it's the same room. The light changes. There is a granular shift. A moth bursts from the drawn curtains into the cloud of exhaled smoke. The rain is falling on one side of the room and not the other. There is only one side of the room and everything is in it. Later there is nothing in the room but a low winter sun, shafts of light, an oncoming storm, a line forming, a line buried without. Nothing has happened for a very long time and it is happening now. Thank you.